we firmly oppose and are disappointed by the ICC prosecutor's announcement of an investigation into the Palestinian situation. We will continue to uphold our strong commitment to Israel and its security, including by opposing actions that seek to target Israel unfairly.
That was U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price reinforcing the U.S. position on the recent launch of an investigation into alleged war crimes by Israelis and Palestinians. The International Criminal Court announcing on Wednesday that their formal probe would soon launch, drawing criticism from Jerusalem as well.
The decision of the International Court to open an investigation against Israel today for war crimes is absurd. It's undiluted anti-Semitism and the height of hypocrisy. Without any jurisdiction, it decided that our brave soldiers, who take every precaution to avoid civilian casualties against the worst terrorist in the world, who deliberately target civilians, it's our soldiers who are war criminals.
Meanwhile, Palestinians welcoming the opening of the investigation.
أعتقد هذا القرار مهم جدا في سياق أن هناك فعلا عدالة ستفرض على من يقوم بالجرائم ضد الشعب الفلسطيني أو أي جرائم في العالم، وبالتالي ما قام به الاحتلال جرائم متواصلة كان يعتقد أنه معفي من مغبة مساءلته أمام هذه الجرائم.
Let's speak with Professor of International Law from Hebrew University, Robbie Sabel. Thank you so much for joining me today, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Jerusalem and Washington seem to have brushed this probe off as something offensive and meaningless, but now Israel is moving to protect officials from it. How afraid should Israel be of this investigation?
In the short term, not. In the long term, it is worrying. It's a political move. It's strange that the International Criminal Court can't touch anybody in Syria or Iran, but they've picked on the only democratic state in the area, Israel. And I think on this issue, we have the United States with us. The United States in the past has taken firm efforts to make sure that no US official or soldier will be brought before the court. And I think it's fair to assume that they'll help Israel on this issue as well.
Speaking of the U.S., Ned Price also said that the Palestinians do not qualify as a sovereign state and therefore are not qualified to obtain membership as a state or to participate as a state or to delegate jurisdiction to the ICC. Do you think that this is going to affect Biden's hope to reconnect with the Palestinians in the future?
I don't think so. In other words, Biden's position is that in the future there should be a Palestinian state, and Israel is willing to negotiate that issue. The question is whether at the moment there is a real Palestinian state, and Israel's position is that it doesn't exist at the moment, and this is the US position as well.
So while the probe is launching now, it could be months or even years until any kind of charge or warrant is produced. What is involved in this process?
The first stage is they'll have to ask Israel whether we want to investigate the crimes, the purported crimes ourselves. And Israel has said already that whenever there's a suspicion that a soldier has committed a crime, it is investigated by Israel. So we'll have to answer that. Then the next stage is they'll do their own investigation. Normally they interrogate the victims first, and only then will they ask for the Israel to cooperate. Israel's policy is we provided information. We will not, however, allow the court to investigate individual Israeli soldiers or officials, or I assume will be allow them to come to Israel to do that.
So I'm curious, what do you predict? Will anyone be prosecuted as a result of this investigation?
We have they shouldn't be. Under any normal court system, they wouldn't be. However, we are worried that this is a political institution and a political step by the Palestinians. It's not a question of real law. It's a question of trying to smear Israel with crimes. And we are worried that the court up to now has only dealt with African, and they may want to find a Western, what they call a Western state, to try and charge. They tried with the United States and with the United Kingdom and reached a conclusion they couldn't do it. There may be elements in the court who would like to try and have an Israeli accused in order to prove to the world that the court is charging Western states as well. And this, frankly, is our worry.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to wait and see how this develops. Professor, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.